this job.
Ari, obviously there's been a lot going on just in changes in college football. The Quinn Ewers decision a few days ago was obviously a very interesting one. We've seen name, image, and likeness start to weave its way into the fabric of college football. What have been your thoughts on just this new era of sorts, and what have been maybe a couple of things that have stood out to you from it?
Just that some rules are stupid, like high school football players in Texas not being able to benefit off their name, image, and likeness. And I promise you, it might not be this year. It might not even be next year, but eventually that rule is going to go away because it doesn't make any sense. If a person has the ability to earn money from anybody doing anything within the realm of the law, I think it's very un-American to pretend like they shouldn't be able to make it based on rules of athletics that don't really make any sense. And as players now in the new world of NIL have an opportunity to go make money legally through the NCAA rules at the college level, and they have a chance to do that, then they're going to do that. And the Texas Rules Association is going to have to pick what they want. Do they want to change that stupid rule, or do they want their players to continually leave? And that's what it's going to come to. So there's 5-year-olds on YouTube reviewing toys and making over $1 million a year. A high school football player who is as marketable as Quinn Ewers certainly deserves any check that he can get, and I don't blame him for doing what he did, even if it was only part of the reason he went to Ohio State early.
Ari, thank you. Appreciate your time. Have a great week.
Yeah, anytime, guys. Thank you.
Ari Wasserman, the Athletic College Football, at Ari Wasserman on Twitter, national college writer, covered the Big Ten, Ohio State for a long, long time. On the part about Quinn Ewers, and I had another coach tell me this. I say another coach, I've had a few coaches. It's a weird, it's a very unique exception to what probably happens, although in this year alone, we've seen a player opt out of his senior year because he didn't want to deal with an injury. A hell of a player, Jaden Blue from Kane High School, a Texas commit. And now Quinn Ewers, who's an Ohio State, not only commit, now he's going to sign, he's on campus. And I still think that's the exception, but this was I never thought in my mind that I would ever see this. Just like I never thought in my mind I would see athletes getting paid at college, and now we see them getting paid in different ways. So time changes.
There's nothing preventing it. And, as you heard Ari say there's nothing against it. I mean, it is weird. I do think it's weird that a high school quarterback is leaving early to go make money in Ohio. I just think that's just a strange thing that if you would have said that 10 years ago, people would have flipped their lids and been like, there's no way. And yet here we are. So, other than just finding it odd because it's such a break from what we're used to seeing, there's no argument against it. Well, there's really not. And I'm just curious for some of these guys because I don't think it's going to be like next year 100 guys are doing this. I think it is always going to kind of remain with the top elite blue chip players. But, not our problem to worry about really. But I do wonder if years from now, if it's like that's one of those things that was totally worth it in your mind because you made a lot of good money. Or if, maybe you look back on it and you're like, you know what, but that's for them. And that's why that's such an important decision with, hopefully some people who have your best interest in mind have an input as well.
He is a generational talent. He's on top of anyone you hear about what kind of ability he has. Whether we see this next year or yet again before the end of the year remains to be seen.
And here's the deal. The UIL essentially made a rule that excludes about 10 kids from making money. Right? That's what we're talking about.
Maybe if that.
So less, 10 or less.
2 for sure.
2 for sure, yeah.
Jaden Blue and Quinn Ewers, yeah.
So, you've got, 10 or less kids that this would really, really, that have that. Like Cade Klubnik at Austin Westlake doesn't have that same kind of buzz that Quinn Ewers does. And he's also a 5-star recruit who's going to Clemson. Mm-hmm. So, he doesn't have the same kind of buzz, and he is theoretically on the same level as Quinn Ewers when it comes to ability. Maybe, that's all splitting hairs. But again, you're making a rule that affects a few people, and it just doesn't make sense. I know that you make I can see their logic in that. We don't want this to be widespread and be a whole issue for high school coaches to deal with, but there's very few high school players that are popular enough and in big enough towns and with enough attention.
Which is what I've said, a generational talent. Yeah. A huge exception. If it ends up being 30, 40, 50, then the Texas High School Coaches Association is going to have to react to it.
The thing is, Klubnik could have done this if he wanted to. I mean, I don't know that there was somebody, waiting to hand him a check, from a local business or whatever, like apparently has already been lined up for Ewers. I mean, already has a kombucha deal. He's not even, had a practice yet. So, I mean, clearly there was already things in the works. And I don't know if that ever was the case with Klubnik, but he was asked about it today, and he said, good for Ewers, but I'm staying for my senior year. So even the guys of those 10 or so, not all of them are going to want to make that move. Blue and Ewers do, and Klubnik doesn't. And, I don't know who else would potentially be involved in that. I have to take a look at the top 10 recruits list. But, yeah, it's going to be for some people. It won't be for others. And, I guess we'll just fast forward a few years, and then we'll see, who made what they feel like was the right decision at the time and maybe who didn't. And who knows what that landscape looks like by that point. I mean, Cade Klubnik Quinn Ewers might be a millionaire by the end of this year. So who's to say he made a wrong decision when the alternative would have been him just sitting at his high school playing games? And I'm all for seniors playing their senior years, but are you going to tell a kid he's wrong if he's worth a couple $1 million before he's even played a snap in college football? I'm not. Sounds like he's making a really good choice for his life so long as he plays it the right way.
Well, he hopes it's the right choice, but
right.
he has that ability.
That's all you have is hope in all these decisions. You hope your senior year goes well.
Yeah, you wonder when Jalen Smith was injured in that bowl game, right, Paul? Mm-hmm. Tore the hell out of his knee, right? Just crushed it. He's lucky to be walking, didn't walk or didn't have the ability in certain ways. That started the opt-out, right? I'm not sure if anyone had done that before then. Had anyone opted out before Jalen Smith?
It shed a big light on it. I don't know exactly if that was like the start of everything, but it definitely shed a big light.
Yeah, but think about since that time. Then there may have been 8 others that had done it, but it started a trend of those going, and agents, I'm sure. Whoa, Jalen Smith, he was going to be a top 5 or 10 pick. He's making a lot of money now. Whether he earns it or not, I don't know. But now you see it all the time. And then it was, athletes should get paid. And they started getting the cost of education or whatever, right?
Yeah, the full cost of attendance, yeah.
And, and
now there's a stipend.
Now there's a stipend, and then there's the name, image, likeness. And now it trickles down to high school, opting out, and in also NIL. And this has all happened in such a short amount of time, and I never thought it would, only because I saw for years what was like concrete trying to move, the sluggishness of the NCAA and also amateurism as well.
Yeah, they had all that time to figure it out, and they did nothing. Because this day was going to come at some point or another. And now it has come, and now you see all the changes that have taken place. So it's a totally different ball game. Now there's no doubt about that, and some of it's been for the good, some of it's probably not been for the best. We have such a small sample size with this whole thing right now that it's hard to tell whether or not it's going to be good or bad in the long run for college football. But I'm curious, for one, I mean, this is America, so it's funny to me to see people get mad at Quinn Ewers for just doing the most American thing and going and making his money. But I do think this could reach a really absurd point, and some people might feel like that is seniors in high school doing things. But I mean, what's going to prevent the basketball and the AAUs from having 8th graders doing this? Absolutely nothing. Mm-hmm. And we know how early they start recruiting basketball players. It's legitimately 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. They already have scholarship offers for the top players. So yeah, my question is just how far does it go? And even if it is totally free and clear and fair game and all of that, I mean, I do start to think that if this trickles down too much more, I mean, this is really going to be insane. But yeah, nothing surprising at this point.
All right, those of you in the chat room at text line 254-339-1122 to kind of give you an idea, we're about halfway through the show. And today the NCAA Committee of Infractions came down with their ruling on Baylor. And if you take it on a scale of 1 to 10, Paul says a 2. I say it might be a 3. Craig, what would you say it is?
I'd say it's about a 2. I mean, the things that, if you were to ask me, what are you worried about from the NCAA punishment? I would have said loss of scholarships, bowl ban, anything to do with recruiting really would have been a big punishment, especially a loss of scholarships because if, that situation's already weird now. And that's another thing. It's how is the scholarship situation going to work in the next couple of years? Because it's so tied up right now. But, if I were to say worst case scenario, would have been loss of scholarships, would have been loss of official visits, would have been a bowl ban, would have been all those types of things, would have been a stripping of Big 12 championships.
Yep.
And none of that happened. So, outside of the kind of sort of recruiting rules that they have to play under now, but none of those are like really major, like a loss of scholarship. So, a 2. I mean, all the worst stuff didn't happen. So, as far as the punishments that could have been handed down.
And it's all over after once the spring is over, it's all done.
Yeah,
right. I mean, they're done in 8 months.
A lot of things that went with it, including the Big 12 money withheld. That should be returned this fall, which is a lot of you have asked about, and we have as well, and Bob Bowlesby answered that.
And that's no little check either. That's like, what, $30 million?
It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money that they've had.
That they've just not had for like 4 years.
Just because some people wanted to, we got to send a message here or so to appease, and in some ways deservedly so. Deservedly so. When we come back, if you're a Baylor fan, if you're a college football fan, your thoughts and reaction on today's committee of infractions. If you're a Baylor fan, are you relieved today? Are you still like, wait a minute? Are you like surprised in some way, one way or the other? 254-339-1122. And Odell James, who today was the one who got the show cause, his attorney has responded to that. And that's also next to what he has to say, not the whole thing. It's a long statement. And this is Sikkim 365 Radio. The city of Woodway growing. I was over